just wanted to ask you, first of all, about BP's image. It's obviously a big issue. Is that a priority for you, and how do you deal with improving BP's image?
Well, Max, I think image has got to be based on action, real action and response. And so what we're doing, which I think is an unprecedented corporate response to the U.S., we've got 45,000 people working with the Coast Guard along the beaches of the Gulf Coast. We've had 1,000 people in engineering working 24 hours a day to shut off the leak. I think we are there. We've got a cap on it, lots of integrity.
Do you think it's permanently fixed?
I think it is. We put the cap on, came back after a recent tropical storm called Bonnie, came back. The integrity looks good, and we're very close to running something called a static kill, which is pumping the mud and cement in there, maybe Monday, followed by the relief well. I don't think we'll see any more oil flowing into the Gulf again. But the image you mentioned, we've got years to clean up. We've got to restore people's livelihoods in the Gulf of Mexico. We'll be doing the science to baseline the effects on the Gulf, and we're going to stay with that for as long as it takes.
Because you're going to want to go back into that region and work again, aren't you, I presume? So how do you convince the local people that you're safe to operate in that area?
Well, I think it's a valid point that they have. They're upset. Their life has been disrupted. We've set up 35 claims offices across the Gulf. We're obviously not processing them as fast as some people would like. We're going to transition that to Ken Feinberg, who is a professional with that, by the end of August. I think if there's a feeling that when we cap this well, we're going to suddenly pack up and go, and that's not the case. And that's one of the things in my new role is going to make sure that we retain that commitment for a very long time. The people of the Gulf.
There's still oil there, though, isn't there? And you have the rights to it. Do you go back and try and get the oil out again?
Well, the oil is there. I mean, there's a discovery of oil, but we're not actually focused on that now. I mean, I think BP, as will the industry, we're going to learn a lot from this accident. We're going to pull it apart, make sure that safety systems are in place so this can never, ever happen again, not only in the Gulf, but globally.
You've put aside something like $32 billion, a huge amount to deal with this huge problem that you've had on the Gulf Coast. It's a guess, though, isn't it? That's a complete guesstimate about what this is going to cost. Number one, it's based on the fact that you won't be found grossly negligent. I just want to put a point to you. Yesterday I spoke to Congressman Peter Welch, someone you'll know, a US House Democrat. I asked him, is BP grossly negligent? And he said, I would understand that term as a layman, really. I would say yes.
Well, I think there's the testimony that just come out of the Marine Board last week in New Orleans. I think begins to lay out the complexity of this accident. It's going to be a series of errors of judgment of individuals, highly experienced individuals, from many companies, and then a systematic set of failures of equipment that BP has relied on, some of it by our contractors. And I think this is going to find a very complicated, very low probability, but very high impact accident now the industry needs to look at everywhere around the globe. And I think that gross negligence is not what I think is.
Well, Congressman Peter Welch says the gross negligence here was really that every time there was an opportunity for BP to make a choice for safety or to save money, they chose to save money.
I don't believe that to be the fact. I've seen statements that we've cut corners, that we've somehow drilled a well that's unusual. I don't think that's what the facts that I have show, and I don't think that the facts as we really get through these investigations show. There's still a lot yet to come out in the investigation, all the way to pulling out the blowout preventers from the seabed before we really understand this accident.
So, and back to the $32 billion figure, it's also a guesstimate really, because you don't know how much has leaked and you don't know what the penalties will be. It could be a lot more than $32 billion.
Well, when we made that estimate and included that in our figures, we were not sure the well was capped. So I think now we have I believe, it's not completely done yet, we're not quite across the goal line yet.
But it's a better guess.
But I believe it's a better guess, and I think that it's a finite now amount of oil, I believe, that has been in the Gulf, and that begins to cut the range down and how high the liabilities will be, and that's just naturally.
And on a personal level, you must be going into one of the toughest business leadership roles on the planet right now. You're exhausted probably because you've had a tough job dealing with the Gulf for BP up until this point anyway. I mean, you must be nervous, you must be worried, you must be You can't be excited.
Well, Max, I deeply believe in the company. I deeply believe in the response and the loyalty of thousands and thousands of people. And if you've been down to the Gulf, you see it. You see people all across the Gulf. This is what they've been doing. Without a day off now for nearly 100 days. Some of them came from all over the U.S. and some other parts of the world. That's the sort of thing that also energizes me. I'm not nervous about it. I am an optimist by nature. I'm an optimist that BP will right the ship, restore its financial stability, and meet its commitments. And I'm also optimistic about the restorative nature of the Gulf of Mexico.
Some analysts still suggesting that if, for example, the oil price fell sharply, your assets wouldn't be worth as much, you wouldn't have the cash to pay for the problems and the payback for the legal system, as it were. And you could still be broken up because there are a lot of variables still there. How are you going to fight that movement?
Well, speculating on the price of oil is tough. The price of oil is sort of reasonably within a band that we would project now. There's always, it could always rain one day, but I believe that the world and the demand for energy keeps rising. The world is coming out of its economic doldrums now. The world's going to need energy, and I think BP has an incredibly valuable portfolio of assets. We're going to sell up to $30 billion of assets. Now that's out of a pool of $250 billion, so the company will get slimmer, smaller. It won't be small. But we're going to take this opportunity to reset the portfolio and make sure that it's high-quality assets. We've sold $7 billion of assets in the last week, which was a very good price. It's an indication of the quality of the assets we have.